It's interesting that the Hayne Royal Commission appears to be having a more widespread effect than just in Australia. We know that regulators in other markets, Hong Kong and Singapore in particular, who do closely follow what happens in Australia, are looking at Hayne and looking at the likely impact and of course comparing it to their regimes. So oddly enough, we wouldn't describe that as a regulatory change, but it is definitely a catalyst for change.
I honestly think it will be MiFID II. I know that MiFID II is geographically limited to Europe in its application, but it really brings out a lot of best practices that the industry has potentially not been able to catch up with for such a long time. And I think especially on the buy side, around research unbundling, best execution, these aren't things that I necessarily think should just be limited to one jurisdiction. They should be international in their application. A lot of firms globally are going to be moving down the path of global rollout as well. So although it's not something that would be driven by regulators, I think end investors and clients will start to demand the transparency and the kind of, I guess, greater P&L ownership that firms in Europe have with the firms back here in Asia.
In Australia, that'll be the Financial Services Royal Commission, and in particular Kenneth Hayne's strong message to financial services firms that they need to do the right thing by their customers.
I think it's the Haynes Royal Commission, and I don't say that from the financial institutions that were directly impacted by the Royal Commission, but I say that for the whole industry. Compliance levels are rising across the board, and everybody's taking a lot more interest in compliance than they have at any time in the past.
The bank executive accountability regime will really give some regulatory power to the key messages that have come through the Royal Commission and through APRA's review into CBA, for example. And that's really changing culture, it's changing the way that banks approach risk and compliance issues and operational issues in their organisations.